Tonight, we're going to have Municipal Housing Agency Governing Board meeting. I'm going to call that meeting to order and ask the clerk to please take roll.
County.
Here.
Coleman.
Here.
Bozen. Here. Gray.
Here.
Westergaard. Here. Mandelbaum.
Here.
Gatto.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Item 2 is approving the agenda as presented and/or as amended. Could we have a motion?
Move.
It's moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. Item 3, setting date of hearing on the amendment to the annual budget for current fiscal year ending June 30, 2019. That is setting the date of hearing for March 11th of 19. Any thoughts or questions? Anybody? If there are none, could somebody move that one? Been moved? I guess we'll ask everybody to vote if they would, please.
Thank you.
7 yes.
All right, item 4 is setting the date of hearing on the proposed budget for the fiscal year ending June 30 of 2020. That will also be on March 11th of 19. If there are no questions, we could get a motion on that one as well.
Move.
It's been moved. Seeing no questions.
7 yes.
All right, and if we could have a motion to adjourn.
Move.
All in favor?
Aye.
We sit adjourned. Thank you. Scheduled to start at 4:30, but prior to the start of that, we're going to have a message from our own city council member, Joe Gatto. Joe, do you want us to stand, or?
Sure, if you'd like.
All right. Anybody that participate, would ask you to stand at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for our first responders, our public works folks that are going to be working very, very hard the next few days with the snow. We pray for a safe commute home for all the folks that are still out on the roads, that you'll be with them, and you just be with us as elected officials to help us make sensible decisions for our community, and bless this evening. In your name we pray. Amen.
Well, you were quick.
Well, Sorry.
All right, we're going to get started in just a minute. All right, it's 4:30, and we'll go ahead and start. We'll call our Des Moines City Council meeting to order, and I will ask the clerk to please take roll.
County,
Here.
Coleman,
Here.
Boson,
Here.
Gray,
Here.
Westergaard,
Here.
Mandelbaum,
Here.
Gatto.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Item 2 is approving the agenda as presented and/or as amended. I will quickly mention that consent items tonight are 3 through 32, and there is a corrected roll call and on 18 and 20, and regular agenda items 33 through 41. There's a 33 is a council communication number 19-060. But other than that, the agenda is as presented, unless anybody has anything else. Okay,
I'll move.
it's been moved.
Some of us were here to
Yeah.
ask them to do something.
I think somebody.
Okay, but that's for the next one. Okay. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. Item 3 is approving the consent agenda. Those are items 3 through 32. And generally, those are routine items that will be enacted by one roll call vote without separate discussion unless someone, either a council member or a member of the public, asks or requests that an item be removed for either clarification or further understanding and considered separately. Again, those items are 3 through 32. Item 4F, Councilmember Coleman votes no. Item 5, I vote no. Item 14, Mandelbaum registers an appearance of conflict of interest. And item 21, Councilmember Coleman wishes to speak. Are there
Mayor,
any-
I no longer need to speak on 21, so I'd ask it to be included in our vote
Okay,
for approval.
we're going to scratch 21. Councilmember Coleman does not need to speak.
Mr. Mayor.
And Mayor, I know there are a bunch of people here to speak on item number 18, so we should pull that from the consent agenda as well.
Okay.
I'll move the rest of the agenda unless there's anyone else.
Well, we'll ask, is there anybody in the audience has any other items they would like to have pulled for additional consideration or discussion? 18, what you were looking for? Okay,
I see no, Mr. Mayor. I'll move item 3.
all right, and if everybody would vote?
7 yes.
Back to 18.
All right. It looks like that takes us directly to item 18. Item 18 is setting a date of hearing. Item 18 is on a request from Des Moines University, that's the owner of a property, to rezone a portion of the property located at 3200 Grand Avenue from R180, one-family residential, to limited R4, multifamily residential, to revised limited R4, multifamily residential, to remove the current zoning conditions stating there shall be no further extension of parking to serve the use occurring upon the property into any of the adjoining land zone to a single-family residential district classification, and allow the expansion of the campus for an emergency generator for Ryan Hall and additional surface parking to the southeast, and that is scheduled by Des Moines University to be heard on the 22nd of April of 19. We can go ahead and open that up, and if anybody would like to speak, we would ask you to do so. However, keep in mind, everybody that's in the audience tonight, this is a setting the date of hearing. This is not to hear the merits of any of it. That will be at the hearing. So if there's other things that people would like to talk about or need some clarification, we'd be happy, and legal is here, and And so we'll go ahead and move forward. So if somebody has something to say that's, has to do with this thing that is going to be discussed, at least preliminarily, at a hearing on the 22nd of April. Give us your name and address, please.
Good evening, Mayor, County, and City Council members. My name is Nicholas Larson, and I live at 127 34th Street, Des Moines, Iowa, 50312. As president of the Greenwood Historic Neighborhood Association, I would like to discuss our concerns regarding the hearing date for Des Moines University's rezoning request. The city's recommendation is to set the hearing on April 22nd. We are here to ask for that hearing to be scheduled for February 25th. Des Moines University has simply not earned a delay in this matter. Des Moines University is a large tax-exempt institution in our neighborhood, and their history of negligence resulting in damage to our neighborhood is appalling. By not maintaining the detention pond on their property, residents have lost homes. The city of Des Moines has spent hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars purchasing damaged homes, and current homeowners are constantly worried about the effects of the next heavy rain. The liability that the city of Des Moines has assumed due to their negligence is astounding. After the plan and zoning meeting where Des Moines University's request was unanimously denied, our association, at the recommendation of the city, reached out to President Dr. Angela Franklin. She denied our request for a meeting. This is a bold statement that they are not willing to work with us in the neighborhood. Our association feels that Des Moines University has other options for additional parking and placement of a generator that would not require this rezoning request. Again, Des Moines University has not earned a delay. DMU has indicated that they have a request for proposal out for the creation of a master plan. We are asking they complete their master plan in thoughtful and thorough manner and then return to the city of Des Moines with that robust plan instead of the piecemeal approach they are currently using. We would like to be part of the planning process. We are both stakeholders in this neighborhood and in each other's success, ultimately. We deserve to be part of the process. Our association, and especially our members living on 31st Street and Elmwood Drive, have been living with this ominous possibility for over a year. During that year, we have very clearly communicated to DMU our position on these projects. It's time to end this nightmare. Delaying this hearing, you will continue to impose unnecessary emotional distress, resulting in sleepless nights for these families. To the City Council members here tonight in the City of Des Moines, I humbly ask that you reconsider the date for this hearing and schedule it for February 25th. Again, Des Moines University has not earned a delay regarding this matter. Thank you for your consideration.
May I please use your projector? Is there a way to do that, Mr. Coleman?
I'll help you.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, you got it figured out.
Thank you, sir.
All right, give us your name and address, please.
My name is Rochelle Quiner. I live at 119 34th Street. I am the Greenwood Historic Neighborhood Acting Vice President. I would like to give you a brief history at how we arrived here today to oppose this request. This map, as you see on the projector, was created in 2016 because of a request that came before the Zoning Board of Adjustment, the Plan and Zoning Commission, regarding a property at 3816 John Lynn Road. Please see point number, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. It gave our association and the City of Des Moines an understanding of the impact of water on our neighborhood. Plan and Zoning Board of Adjustment denied the request. Their decision was appealed to you, the Des Moines City Council, where it was again denied. We thank you so much for that. Your decision was challenged through the court system, making its way this past year to the Iowa Supreme Court, where it was denied at a hearing. Excuse me. You were a part of a series of correct decisions based on water issues in our neighborhood that were supported by our state's judiciary. At that time, we thought we had a good understanding of our water issues. Then last year, on January 16th, Des Moines University held a meeting to discuss their first run at this project. At that meeting, Mark Pfeiffer said that this was going to be a great thing for our neighborhood because Des Moines University was going to finally clean out the detention pond on their property that has silted in over the past 30 years. Because of the conversations at that meeting, they withdrew their request the next afternoon. Please note, the detention pond shown with the red oval was not on this map when it was originally created. Visual inspection of their property did not show anything that looked like a detention pond at that time. For the last year, Des Moines University has been trying to reposition themselves as good neighbors. These attempts can in no way make up for their years of negligence. Additionally, parking could be obtained by building a parking garage over an existing surface parking area. They have indicated that this would be too expensive. They could also evaluate the current parking areas for opportunities to disperse these 37 parking stalls throughout the existing 735 stalls they currently have. This could be done by creating more stalls for cars and simply restriping the current parking areas. That small blue box on this map, sorry about that, on our second map, this small blue box represents the generator. Just glancing at this map, you can see there are numerous locations on their existing campus where this generator could be placed, including building rooftops. In 2000, DMU made an agreement with our neighborhood stating that if they were able to attain more parking, at that time, they would not petition us to develop more of the land abutting our neighborhood. Their needs have now changed. Using that same 20 years as a measure, it would be fair to draw the conclusion that in another 20 years, they will have more needs for more land. At that point, our neighborhood might have seen all of our green space developed while DMU moves on to another larger location. They have other options that would not require this rezoning request. Help us take the measures we need to take today to maintain our neighborhood for the years to come. They have not earned a delay. We ask that you schedule this hearing for February 25th, and I thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is Mary Claire Uselding, and I live at 3223 Elmwood Drive. I've appeared before the Zoning Commission on several occasions, and I think many of my concerns and those of my neighbors have been communicated to you in advance of this evening. Just in case somebody didn't get the memo, I have a brief two-page compilation, distillation, summarization of the concerns that were represented before the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I made sure I made enough copies for all the city council members, so there you go. I sent
Be here if I move to receive and file it, so it's part of
Of course, please.
I'll move to receive and file it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
You bet. Okay. A few days ago, I sent an email to all members of the city council. I'm sure I'm the only email you got that day, so I'm sure you've all read it. But in the event that you haven't, there are just 2 points that I would like to address that were in that memo. It was really a recitation of the way Des Moines University has conducted itself before the neighborhood, and is one of the reasons why I believe we are so not inclined to acquiesce to a delay or to agree that a delay is warranted. But I want to make one thing clear at the beginning, that none of these comments that any of us have made are about Des Moines University's quality as an osteopathic medical school or a clinic. I don't think that's not what we're talking about. On the other hand, nor is it just about a parking lot and a generator. That's another thing to keep in mind. It's about Des Moines University taking the neighborhood for a ride, as it does whatever it takes to get approval for developing the R180 parcel, eventually, in the heart of the historic neighborhood, when other options, as some of which have been outlined, are clearly available. I have been disappointed, maybe even shocked, by Des Moines University's actions throughout this dispute. I always thought of them as a class act, and I'd like to think of them that way again. But the officials have been very secretive, misleading, and manipulative in their meetings with the neighbors. I don't trust anything they say anymore, and that's really a shame. That's really too bad. In my email, I list a long list of ways in which I think they have not acquitted themselves honorably. But sort of the last straw for me was this, when they say, and after all this, now we'd like another 2 months to figure out what to do. Ladies and gentlemen, they've had a whole year to figure out what they want to do. It was evident from this time last year that the neighborhood was very opposed to what they were proposing in all of its various forms that they presented. And I think it's a stalling tactic. And that's the main reason why I stand here before you to ask you not to grant this request. I'd also like to say, I feel bad about feeling bad about Des Moines University. It's not the way I want to feel about them. I took a look before I came here today on their website. Here's their Vision 2021. And it lists many beautiful, really, vision statements with respect to education, research, the clinic, so forth and so on. They also attach a values statement. I'm just going to paraphrase here. Take accountability for our actions. Establish cooperative relationships. Demonstrate the highest standard of truthful and ethical behavior. And I'm sure that the face they show to their students, their prospective students, their parents, their donors, exemplify all of these values. And I would just like them to turn that face toward the neighborhood. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lon Steger. I live at 13 Southwest 34th Street. For about 12 years, I'm a former president of the Neighborhood Association, so I know the people involved here very well. And what I would ask you to do is just put yourself in their shoes. I mean, you can look at the weather outside. It's horrible, right? This is a large audience for something as simple as scheduling a meeting, but you can see how important it is to people. And I can tell you this, nothing will happen between February 25th and April 22nd that will make an ounce of difference to this group. If Des Moines University cobbles together some sort of plan, now mind you, the president's been there 8 years, they don't have a plan, they're now putting out the RFP. So let's say they cobble something together. Any suggestion of another foot of development on that residential property is unacceptable. So the facilities master plan is not for the purpose of trying to rezone this. It's for Des Moines University to step up and show leadership and have a plan. If you delay this, all you're doing is taking them off the hook of having proper leadership. And I'd go as far as to say that that variance in 2001 was a bad decision. And there's ample evidence to show. You look at, there's video evidence at the 2 planning and zoning meetings of this volume of water. 2 houses have washed down. It's just been said that taxpayers have had to pay for. And what I would challenge this council and the mayor to do at Des Moines University is figure out a long-term plan. As I said in my email to you, there's many options. And if you look at their plans, go up to their website, they state that they're the 15th largest medical school in the country. This is no longer the Des Moines Osteopathic Medical School. They have ambitions to get a lot bigger. They compete with the University of Iowa and other state medical schools. They're going to need more space. This is just a very short-term solution to solve a problem that they haven't planned for. And like I said in my email, they're going to need a bigger footprint, whether downtown, the AIB campus seems to make a lot of sense to me. And what I would like for them to do is offload some of the traffic, figure out a way to build more vertically on their campus. And they have the resources, they have a very large endowment to do it. They're 70% through another $25 million campaign. And I think the right thing for them to do is to reverse what happened in 2001 and take that liability away so there aren't further homes washed out down below. And so people down in Elmwood aren't concerned that their kids are outside in a rainstorm and might get washed away. And if you've seen the rain, it's real. If a young child got caught up in that, you saw what happened last summer. A very prominent personality in Des Moines, 65-year-old man got washed away. That can happen in our neighborhood. So nothing will happen between now and April 22nd to make a difference. It's time to move on. Otherwise, all you're doing is putting all these people through 2 more months of mental anguish. Anguish that's lasted for 17, 18 years. And you'll notice a lot of these are seniors, right? So please, I urge you, just be done with it. Schedule a vote on February 25th. I have a pretty good idea of the way the vote's going to go. And then Des Moines University can get on with being the 15th largest medical school in the country and make a proper plan. Thank you.
I have that video. Could somebody help me with that?
This is taxing on the AV.
And maybe I can just, I can play it on here, or how?
How about, let's try it just on the screen. Do you care if I do this?
Sure, that's fine.
Diane, can you try this first, and then we'll try and plug it in?
And I was going to read a little bit before we play it, too.
Okay.
so-
I have to,
Okay.
turn it this way.
Sure.
It has to be at an angle.
Okay. Can I do the
Yep,
reading
go ahead.
first? Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Julie Kramer, and I live at 3219 Elmwood Drive in Des Moines, directly behind Des Moines University. I've been a realtor here in Des Moines for about 20 years, and I've sold houses throughout central Iowa. I looked for a long time before I chose where I currently live. I've always been in love with the stunning Greenwood historic neighborhood, the towering oaks, the wildlife, the proximity to downtown, and the commitment by the neighborhood in preserving one of Des Moines' crown jewels. There are many reasons, and by now you've heard them all, about why DMU's rezoning request should not be approved. But today I'm only going to focus on one. Since moving in, I've put over $100,000 into my home, and I plan to stay there forever. I've worked closely with the City of the Des Moines Public Works to clear out the brush alongside my house, to clear up the creek and rock the waterway, the city-owned waterway bordering my property. They widened it, placed riprap along it, and they continue to keep the drainage basin open. Since there are 3 drainage streams that converge at the back, northwest corner of my property, there's a large volume of water after every storm. It's typical that I have 2 to 4 inches of mud at the bottom of my driveway after every rainstorm. So every time it rains, I have to drive through it and track it up my driveway. Obviously, this is a cost for the city to come out and clean it. I do have many pictures and videos of the rainfall after every storm of the raging waters that come through. We've had deer get caught in the runoff and drown, later to be pulled out by the city from the drainage basin by my house. Everybody in the neighborhood knows not to let our pets out, not to let our kids out during that time to prevent being washed away. The video I'm going to share occurred 1 week before the big water event this summer. It was shot looking north, so south of my home, looking up towards DMU. And at the end of the video, you'll see the detention basin that's just installed on the corner of my property on Elmwood. And that was put there to help slow water down. Although there was a lot of water that day, this occurs every time we get a substantial rain.
So let's try that.
Okay.
Ready?
See, if you can see that to the left, there's water coming down even the sidewalk outside of the street. And that street veering to the left goes up to the west. And then straight ahead is the detention pond to the left of my driveway. And then you can see the debris in the street, which is a frequent, every time it rains, we're out pulling logs out or rocks or boulders or whatever has washed up that time.
Is that the empty lot right there?
Right, to the left is the empty lot, and to the green space there.
We're looking north right there.
Correct, you're looking north. Yep.
Is Jonathan here?
The week following this rainstorm, I had multiple horrified clients, some who live in Beaverdale and Windsor Heights, calling me for help what to do. I was downtown at the concert, my phone was going off, and saying that there was a huge rainstorm coming through. They had water pouring into their homes. Clients were sending me photos of their basements. So at that point, I'm getting ready to drive home, petrified of thinking what could have happened to my house, knowing that this just happened a week prior. With what we had seen in the past, I could only imagine the destruction that had happened. I heard over and over the stories about the empty lot just to the west of my property, where the house used to be. When this house got washed away several years ago, the neighbors helped retrieve and pick up the homeowners' belongings that were scattered throughout the neighborhood. I could only imagine that now that was my fate. I couldn't even speak as I drove home. I was literally shaking as I came down the street to turn the corner at 31st. I mean, it was unspeakable how I felt, and it was just horrifying because of what potentially could happen. But fortunately for me, I dodged a bullet, and I only had to contend with a gigantic muddy mess. But this is the nightmare that many of us constantly live under. Members of the City Council, I ask you to not delay the hearing scheduled for February 25th, and to honor the Zoning Commission's unanimous ruling. Deny DMU's request. No one knows if DMU's repairs to its detention pond will solve the issue. Serious concerns have, in fact, been raised by professionals about the adequacy of that detention pond. Since it was just completed in fall, there's not been rainstorms after that of any substance. I don't want to be the test home, the one that we cross my fingers and hope that it works. I've put way too much in my home to have it all washed down the street. DMU should not do anything to exacerbate the flooding. At a bare minimum, we don't need any more paved areas on the R-180 land to tempt fate now or in the future. Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody else?
Real quick.
Okay, is this our last speaker? On this issue, at least?
I'll be real quick. I have a lot of concerns about what DMU is trying to do, but this is purely about the delay to April 2019. Is there a way for me to just share a picture on an overhead? This is...
Is it a little bit at an angle or it doesn't
Yeah.
work?
So this was taken December 21st, I believe, a day or two after DMU went to the commission to request the ability to do this. And so my wife was staying home with a child who wasn't feeling well, and she took a picture of this. I don't know what that is, a four-wheeler Gator. This is outside the backyard in a residential area. I don't know if I'm allowed to do this, but apparently DMU is. There's an impact to the neighborhood, even just on this delay. I don't agree with what DMU is trying to do. I think it's a big mistake. But even, thank you, even in the interim, there is real impact to me, Mike Erdman, 218 31st Street. This is directly borders DMU, the property that they want to put this parking lot on. I think it's time to move forward. Let's have this vote. Vote your conscience, but there's no reason to delay. They've had over a year. That's all I care to say. Thank you.
All right, the issues before us, I think it was originally stated, is setting a date, a hearing which has been requested at this moment by Des Moines University to be in April. And as we're hearing here, there's objection on the part of the people in the audience to do that. I will just say, before I turn it over to our council member, Mandelbaum, that it's an interesting situation that you present to us. An applicant in their application to do something generally is submitted, and we move forward on that based upon whatever it is that they want to present at that hearing, and whether or not, what the date is that they're available to do it. And maybe based upon some of the input that they've gotten from the neighborhood, there will be an assessment. I've got to tell you, I understand. I grew up in this area. I understand the fear of the parents. I know my parents were probably a little worried when we disappear for periods of time to go play in these areas. And, of course, we as kids didn't think much about it. But in the meantime, I think that there needs to be efforts put forward to minimize the risk and do everything possible to reduce the risk, and whatever those things are that are possible in terms of the flooding and the risk at the housing. But I will also tell you that having sat here for a number of years and also been on planning and zoning, we have, I don't believe, ever rejected a request by an applicant to not, to change a date that they have applied for. So I just kind of need to put that out as a preface to this discussion. But I will turn it over to Councilmember Mandelbaum, and then we'll see what discussion goes on the table.
Yeah, well, I appreciate everyone's time here tonight, and over really months. Nick, you and I talked about this, actually, I think before I was sworn in, but we had a joint meeting with folks at DMU about their rezoning request back in August. I've had conversations with a number of neighbors. I've been to at least a few of your houses. I've walked this area with you all. And I will also add, I'm not a member of the Greenwood Historic Neighborhood Association, although I almost consider myself a member. I'm in an area that doesn't have a neighborhood association, and I've even suggested that the Greenwood Historic look at expanding to include the area I live in. So you will often find me and my family walking the streets. I've probably walked by every single one of your houses multiple times. And these issues are personal to me in ways. My son's going to start at Greenwood Elementary School in the fall, and his walk to and from school is going to be along Grand Avenue, right by the ingress and egress to this parking lot and parking area. So this will very much have a direct impact on me and my family. I want to assure everyone here, we have heard the concerns loud and clear. We have heard the emails, the calls. I've watched the planning and zoning meetings, and we take these concerns very seriously. And what I am hopeful for is that we can find solutions, not just in this immediate request, but the goal is to help improve the long-term relationship between the neighborhood and the university. And we've got a lot of work to do to get to that point. I know that there have been, some of this predates all of the players here. Some of the actions go back to before folks lived in the neighborhood, to before the current leadership at DMU. But what I'm hopeful for is that we can find ways to move forward, because voting one zoning proposal down does not end an issue when there are broader problems to solve. I would say one of the most significant pieces of this is the stormwater issue. And that's something that we face challenges with all over our community, in part because we developed as a city before we knew to plan and think about watersheds in the way that we do today. And as a consequence, we have challenges with addressing and dealing with water flow. And it's only been exacerbated as climate change has made severe rains more frequent and more common. Addressing the water issues is, I think, the most urgent issue in all of this. I will say DMU deserves some credit for expanding the stormwater detention basin. I absolutely recognize that there were problems that basin was not maintained. One of the interesting pieces of this is I've tried to find out exactly how that basin came into existence and what the history was there. And I don't know that we have good documentation of when it was first added from talking with our stormwater engineering team. I don't think it was even the last time there was this major zoning discussion. I don't think it had been maintained at that time, and people even knew that it existed. But one of the problems is, we don't have any way right now, or any requirement to enforce maintenance of the stormwater detention. And I'm hopeful that we can have conversations, and that can end up as something that we actually have an enforceable requirement for in the future. I think the concerns folks have raised about the parking are well received. From my perspective, I don't think that there is the documented need. There is anecdotal evidence of parking challenges, but there's not that documented need. And the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended that be part of the broader discussion of the master plan and part of a long-term fix. And I think that is a reasonable approach. Without data to actually demonstrate that need, I think the university is going to have a tough time convincing this council of the need for additional parking on this location. But I do think there's legitimate issues relative to the generator, and my hope is we can figure out how to work towards that. I know, and some of this has been suggested by members of the neighborhood, to look at battery storage as an option, and that has been taken to folks at DMU, and hopefully we can work on something. And that is part of what this additional time would provide. And then I think we need to figure out a way, as part of this process, to get the university and the neighbors talking together and to rebuild trust. I know that's going to be hard, but to solve these problems long-term, if we want to do something more than just a detention basin, it's going to require convincing and working with DMU, whatever they build on that campus. If they go vertical, do they build a catchment so that whatever building or parking structure or whatever exists in their future plan, that incorporates water catchment to further relieve the burden downstream. But that is something that's going to require cooperation. And right now, we're not there, but my hope is that we can start that process. I'm committed to helping facilitate conversation between the university and the neighborhood. At times, if it requires me to be a go-between, I'm willing to serve that role. I'm going to continue encouraging both sides to keep talking and to keep looking for solutions. And with that, I'm going to move this item and to continue the hearing until April 22nd. Set the hearing, sorry.
Any other council members' comments?
I know people are disappointed the hearing will happen on the 22nd. I mean, I know people have characterized it as a delay. I actually had never heard a date before the 22nd when it got on our agenda, and the paperwork that we got from the Planning and Zoning Department, that's when it was scheduled. So whatever information was out there, I'm not quite sure that was totally accurate. The one thing that I'd say is I'll use this time to support the neighbors and Josh and everybody else so that DMU can, listen and respond and maybe identify some alternatives to the proposal they have right now. So
you had said that you've never had a delay of a hearing. If somebody asks for a hearing, you've always approved a hearing so that they could have their say, basically? Okay. I just wanted to, being new, I don't think, as far as, I think we all have heard everybody's concerns. In fact, many of us have met with many of the neighbors, and we appreciate all time and energy, and after seeing the films, we all know what you go through when it rains, or, the damage that's been done. So as far as setting or moving the hearing doesn't mean that we're in support of more parking or anything, but it would be a matter of just giving, since the applicant has asked for a hearing, the process that we normally follow. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, just real quick, and I refer this question back to you, Scott. I've sat here for a few years, and I've seen pictures of that water rushing down in that area. And I'm hoping that through our stormwater improvements that we're going to do, that this area will be treated that way. I don't know if it's supposed to do that, but I know in some heavy rainfalls, it probably did that in lots of part of the city and not just there. So I don't know exactly when that rainfall was, but I have seen that happen before. So it would be worth, Public Works making sure that any and all retention areas, and that's one other point to where, and I've had this complaint from other parts of the city where we have a retention pond put in, but we never go out and make sure that it's maintained unless we have a complaint. And I don't know if that can be put into some type of ordinance that, maybe yearly, that we ask folks that have a retention area to be adequately maintained, inspected. I think that would be worth checking into and wondering what the cost would be for the property owner to have to do that. All that weighs into my decision on whether that would be something, or if we're able to go out and inspect it ourselves. Do we necessarily have to charge a fee? Do we have a group that could go out and do that? I don't know. Those are some of the questions. It just seems like we've asked them to build a retention pond for years back, and then we never went out and checked it, and it filled in, and we didn't even know it was there. That seems a little odd to me. And if that's happening anywhere else in the city, we better get on top of it right now before we have another rainfall like we did on June 30th. So I would support Josh's. I know it's probably not what a lot of people want to hear, but I think that DMU probably deserves a little bit of time to get their act together and figure out what they want to do and how they want to work with you, and hopefully that'll be a little cooling down period for some of the neighbors. The best thing to do is going to be able to communicate with them, and hopefully they get that message loud and clear.
Scott, on to this discussion is Joe mentioned, and for our debate and also for the neighbors. They've got 24 acres there about, I think. And what does it take in terms of detention, retention, controlled release to take care of a reasonable runoff? Because I think as she pointed out when she put that piece up, that was even before the June 30 event. And because I think we did have a pretty heavy rainfall the week before.
Yeah,
because you felt it, I think, more on the south side than you did June 30.
More than June 30th.
But I just sort of wonder, what would it take, not only on their property, but the surrounding properties that drain into that kind of mini watershed, and what would we have to do, what would the homeowners have to do, what would everybody have to do, including the city, including DMU, to somehow lessen that risk? And of course, then the point is, to Josh's, how do we predict what it's going to look like? I mean, are we going to see 10-inch rains, moving forward? Is that going to be the new normal, or at least the new 100-year event now is going to be an event like that?
Let's hope not.
But I hope not, too. But I think we ought to at least ask engineering, what level do we protect, or ask even levies or anything else to protect? Is it supposed to restrict and control release an inch, over 24 hours, or 4 inches over 24 hours? I mean, what is it that we could reasonably expect to ask this property owner that has a substantially, a very large piece of property, that, obviously drains from Grand Avenue down to the Raccoon River. How would we look at it? And if you could get one of our engineers to at least spend a little bit of time to not only think about it a little bit, but then enter that into this broader discussion with the neighbors in Des Moines University so that we all understand what the risk is and what the opportunity is to lessen this problem. I think it'd be helpful.
Can I bring up a point? I think it's, when you're looking at all that area, when you talk about the 3 different creeks, so that would be everybody that's along Grand in that vicinity. So it's not just DMU, right? If we're going to really take a is that what you're saying, that we really should look? Because you
Absolutely.
have Wesley Acres next to it, that has a lot of parking. I mean, I just think that,
Well, and while it
So
wasn't
is that
exactly
the
brought
point?
up, but there's a significant amount of water off of 3,000 Grand, somewhere between 31st and 29th.
well, that's what I'm just saying, I think
That goes
we,
down into that creek,
to,
because both of them come together, I think, at St. John's Road and 31st, or whatever that is down there.
I would hope that if we're looking at it, because the concern of the water and the amount of water would be, it's more than just that one parcel. It is understand, but I think as long as if we're going to take a look, it would be good to really look at that whole watershed,
I tried to look it up when
which is, I just want to make sure that we take a
Absolutely.
comprehensive look, as long as we're doing it now,
Yeah.
to give them more security.
So, Josh, would you mind kind of requesting to add a little bit of that to your motion?
Sure. That makes sense, and add those requests as articulated by the mayor.
Okay.
7 yes.
I want to thank everybody for coming down, although it sounded a little bit like not just setting date of hearing, but it is good for us to hear firsthand concerns. But I think what we need to do is all of us get engaged in this long-term, hopefully, resolution of a long-standing issue. And I hope there's a solution, but again, having walked that area as a small child between Greenwood and where we lived in the 2800 block off of Grand, it was a lot of fun going through the woods, but I got to tell you, I know that it scared my parents for me to be down there certain times of the year under certain kinds of storm events. I didn't think about it, of course, during that time, but luckily, at least I avoided the worst of it, and am still here to talk about it. But thank you all for coming down. Let's, all of us, try to work together, get together. Let's find solutions that are helpful to the neighborhood, and hopefully we can convince Des Moines University, a valuable asset also, as was pointed out by many of you, that the neighborhood's interests and their interests aren't necessarily separated, that we're all needing to work together to have a strong future for a great neighborhood and also a fine institution that's looking at the public health and the future of that to the citizens of the city of Des Moines. So thank you all for coming down. Since it is past 5 o'clock, yeah. She said 7. 7-0. Yep. All right. We need to go straight to the hearings. Our first hearing item is item 36. Item 36 is on the approval of documents for conveyance of a license agreement for a building canopy over Fifth Avenue right-of-way and a license agreement for a private pocket park on city property adjoining 555 Fifth Avenue, all to LT Associates LP for $1,000. Let's open the hearing and see if there's anybody here to speak to this item. 36.
Seeing none, I'll move item 36.
Seven yes.
37. Items regarding city-initiated request for property at 3500 Vandalia Road to allow development of a steel fabrication plant with outdoor storage of materials and finished products. A is amending the existing Plan DSM, creating a tomorrow plan future land use designation from business park to industrial. B is a hearing to rezone the property from M1 light industrial to limited M2 heavy industrial. C is the first consideration of the ordinance above. The D is the final consideration of the ordinance above. The waivers requested by our city manager and requires 6 votes. Let's go ahead and open the hearing. Is there anyone here to speak to this item 37 ABCD? Seeing none?
Mr. Mayor, I see none. I'm excited, and I typically don't get very excited about a steel fabricated building, but I got to tell you, PDM expanding their business, staying here local, you know, they built a significant building right down here in the marketplace. They're one of the first buildings put there with parking garage. I'm excited that they're going to expand their building and do it down there and not move somewhere else. So I would be happy to move 37 A, B, C, and D, and thank you to the staff for putting this together. I know Aaron worked extremely hard. Your office has did quite a bit of things with this, so I appreciate that, and thank you.
As we're voting, Joe, want to add that they built it out of pretty solid materials.
They did, didn't they?
It's concrete, and no matter what happens down there, I think that building will be there.
Absolutely, I agree.
Mr. Coleman?
7 yes.
38, on the approval of documents for the vacation of portions of 27th Street and University Avenue right-of-way adjoining 2650 University Avenue, and of the north-south alley right-of-way between 26th and 27th Street from University Avenue to a point 329 feet to the south, and the conveyance of said alley and permanent easement for airspace above city-owned property and a permanent easement for subsurface building encroachment to Nelson Development 1 LLC for $37,226 and acceptance of a permanent easement for public ingress and egress. A is the first consideration of the ordinance above, and B is the final consideration of the ordinance above. The waiver is requested by the applicant and requires 6 votes. Let's go ahead and open the hearing and see if there's anybody here to speak to this item regarding property up of 27th vicinity at University. Anybody? Seeing none?
I'll move 38A and 38B.
Seven yes.
39, these are items regarding requests from Agape Pregnancy Center, the owner, for a property at 2008 and 2222 Bennett Avenue to allow conversion of an existing supervised group residence to a medical and professional counseling office. A is amending the existing Plan DSM, creating our tomorrow plan future land use designation from low-density residential to community mixed use. B is a hearing to rezone the property from R160, one-family low-density residential, to CO, commercial residential. C is the first consideration of the ordinance above. D is the final consideration of the ordinance above. The waiver is requested by the applicant and requires 6 votes. Let's open the hearing and see if there's anybody here to comment on this request from Agape Pregnancy Center.
Well, I'm from Agape, and I'm here to ask you to do that. Or I'll sit back here and watch the vote.
Okay. Generally, we would ask you if you said anything to come up and announce yourself and put it on the record, because this is a hearing.
I'm Steve Siemens. My address is 6478 Northeast 5th Avenue, Des Moines, 50327. I'm the executive director of Agape, and we want to expand our service to the community, and I'm requesting that you waive and we start working to make a difference in the lives of people.
Thanks, Steve. Anybody have any questions of Steve? All right.
I will be knocking on your door, Steve, for that tour, by the way. All right. Thank you. Hearing none, I'll move 39A, B, C, and D.
Seven yes.
40, on a Fluor Drive reconstruction from George Flagg Parkway to Watrous Avenue, Phase 1, northbound lanes. Resolution approving the plan specifications, form of contract documents, engineer's estimate, designating the lowest responsible bidder is Synergy Contracting LLC, Jesse Rognes, President, $7,388,888.30. Council Communication Number 19-056. A is approving the contract and bond and permission to sublet. Let's go ahead and open the hearing regarding Fluor Drive reconstruction. Anybody here to speak to this? I'm sure there are lots that go to and from the airport that are really glad this is happening.
I would like to ask one question. I should have done it ahead of time. I never got it submitted. Just if this is a company that I don't recall getting a city contract before, anybody on your team, Scott, have any information or background on local experience?
I'll have Steve come up from engineering. My understanding is this is a relatively new company.
And then I have a follow-up question for Steve with kind of that.
Should have brought my binder, sorry.
No, you're good.
Steve Neighbor, City Engineer, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. We did, Synergy has completed city contracts before, one of which was improvements over on Euclid Avenue, about a $1.5 million project. They did, and that was a couple years ago, they did complete the project on time. We also did call, ask them to provide some references. And so they, one of the large projects they're doing right now that they're pretty far along in is with West Des Moines. It's an $8.2 million sewer project and pump station. And West Des Moines had positive things to say about them. So,
Are they on the, DOT list if they're doing a lot of road and sewer work?
the projects they provided in references weren't DOT lists, so I can't answer that question. I can.
All right.
Yeah.
And we have them on the agenda for a different project that's a little bit different, which is what raised my interest, what exactly what their history has been.
Yeah,
But I don't know anything.
Yeah. We do know they have, for example, Grimes Asphalt as their subcontract. They're proposing
Okay.
a subcontractor for the asphalt, so they have what we consider a definitely responsive and responsible lineup of subcontractors. So.
And because of the reconstruction and the difficulty some of our drivers are going to have while it's under construction, are you satisfied with the money that they put in to meet the specs about safety during construction? Just how they're going to do it, what they're going to do?
Yeah, and I should have brought it up here. We did put in a staging plan. They would have to follow that unless they proposed something that we felt more beneficial. That staging plan is set up in a manner that the main goal of it was to reduce the amount of times that you had adjacent major intersections closed at the same time, meaning Watrous and Park, we would never want closed at the same time. So you'll notice that we anticipate from our staging that we proposed is they would start from the north end and then work their way south, but they would not be allowed to just close the whole section, if you will. And if that doesn't, again, at the pre-construction meeting coming up, they could propose something different, but it would have to be something that we would approve.
And is there, at the back end of the contract, damages and deadline for delays?
Actually, we went a couple approaches. There is liquidated damages on the back end of the contract, but we actually have put out there potential incentives if they can get the mainline pavement back in by the end of year. Meaning that, that if they can get paving and roadway improvements, meaning the water main in and that roadway back open so that they don't need more than a one-lane closure. Because frankly, what we see that's going to be the most painful for our residents is that head-to-head traffic And so if we could minimize the time that that is done, and we actually put in to be an incentive for it because we were concerned that just the liquidated damages weren't.
Is the
enough motivation.
7388, that number up there, does that include the incentive?
That's correct, yep.
Okay.
That was a bid item. Yep.
And then
So if
last-
they don't hit the deadline, and they don't get it.
Is there anything in their bid response that shows where they're getting their employees? You know, are they using people on their payroll? Are they using union contractors? Are they using subcontractors?
I have any knowledge that they're union affiliations, yeah. I'm not aware of that if they're.
I'm probably more concerned even about that the people on the job are actually employees of theirs and not just a series of individual subcontractors.
Well, they would have a requirement to meet the minimum. They have to complete so much of the work, typically 30%, with their own forces. So we couldn't just have,
But their own force, meaning on their payroll, people that are directly.
on their payroll, their own, yeah. So they can have they can only have subcontractors, people who are employed by separate entities or separate contractors, complete about 70% of the work, so.
But that's an issue, Scott and Steve, I'd like to come back to and talk about, ways that we can address that. I mean, on bigger and smaller projects, especially bigger ones, it's frustrating to me to see the number of contractors that are moving toward not employing their workforce, but setting them up as independent contractors. And I think there's ways that we can help address that, and that protects the project and the citizens on these projects.
Okay.
So, Steve, just a couple questions. First off, you talked a little bit about timing. Can you kind of tell the folks that are watching, and maybe Austin will be kind enough to print it, what is the timing of the road being closed, the two-way traffic that people are going to have to deal with? Because obviously it's a major corridor, and we need to probably get that out, and so people are aware of what's going to happen and what's going to happen.
Yep. Well, we would anticipate, again, we'll get more details from the contractor on their detailed schedule, probably within the next week and a half. But we would anticipate, once the project is under construction, again, it will be head-to-head traffic utilizing southbound lanes. So there is no question it is going to be extremely impactful to our residents when, you think about today, it's the 2 lanes in each direction. That will at least occur till at least the end of the year.
But is
And
that
so-
all the way from Watrous to Bell, head-to-head traffic? The other lanes are going to be closed indefinitely for a year? This is what I'm asking.
Right now, we are anticipating that it would probably start off with kind of a stage section, so maybe a northern section, say north of Watrous, would be done first, and so it'd be head-to-head on that stretch, and then they would kind of work their way down. And the reason for that, because we don't want them to shut down those major intersections so people can get to their homes. And that's something, once we work out with the contract with the schedule, we happy to share more of when they actually have that staging.
And I'm sure you're going to notify all the residents of when their road and garbage pickup and things like that, how we're going to address that from one side of the road to the other. You're going to address that with what, certified mail or knock at doors, or how are we going to let those residents know that live on Fleur Drive?
That live on Fleur Drive, and that's typically through, we would issue actual letters to those residents, so during those certain stages of them.
And then going back to the actual bid process, doing the next part of it, I was a little concerned that only 2 people bid on it.
Yep.
I'm sure you had the same thoughts. I think probably everybody sitting here probably had the same thoughts. How do we encourage the next stage of it? Do we get the bid out sooner so people will know that we've got work coming up? What would you suggest that we try to get more than just 2 people to bid on it?
I think some of our other major players that would typically go after a project like that, their current books are, we did talk to them, and they're just currently overloaded. One of them is out on Hubble Avenue, to be frank.
Sure.
And McKinley is the same, who would typically bid on these type of projects. We're definitely concerned moving forward with the amount of work that is going on in the overall metro. The next phase doesn't have the water main, so that's kind of another added feature that I think poses a challenge to getting this project done in a timely manner, so that may add into it. But to be honest, we are.
So the next phase, you anticipate to be less than $7.3 million?
Correct. Yep, we would anticipate it to be less, and then also hopefully less duration too without that water main, because
Okay.
the water main, there's no other room.
You read
for
my
it.
mind, didn't you?
Yeah, there's no other room that, that water main is going underneath the roadway pavement. That's the only space we have for it.
What about sewer? What about storm sewer? Are we switching all that out too?
There'd be the necessary improvements that go with the reconstruction, but we don't have any like major capacity improvements in the area. Yep,
Okay.
no. Yep. Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
Can you just request, can the council, just because Fleur's in your ward and some of us represent the whole city, but most people kind of feel like it's the whole city's road, out to the airport.
We all hear about it.
They're all the whole city.
Yeah. Can we get copied on the letters that you send to residences and businesses, just so that we know what they know when they know it? Just copy us on that. That'd be great.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That'd be good.
Yeah, thank you,
right.
thank you.
I'll-
And maybe a web page, like kind of similar to Hubble. Hubble one, I think is.
And like
is
what we did
communicating.
for Indianola Avenue, where
Yeah.
we had a Facebook page, we had a website, I mean, they were able to go there, get updates. That would be beneficial, especially
Okay.
for this road.
Yeah, thank you.
The manager's going to be out there day one with donuts, I think, for all the
what he said.
citizens that are driving.
Yeah.
And maybe also, just as we're connecting the Purple Heart Highway and 235, see if the state is amenable to help us out here. Thank you.
Maybe in the next phase. It's not necessarily true.
Only Linda caught this. Almost $7.4 million. We have to have 30 cents on top of it.
Get the 30, right?
I've got it covered. But I did a little bit of math here. And if I get, it's 100,000th of a percent difference 30 cents makes. I can't help but be blessed and wonder how they could come up with it. Just my thoughts.
They're getting it down to the penny, Bill. Trying to save our taxpayers every penny.
7 yes.
Okay, item 41, on Riverview Park improvements, resolution approving the plan specifications, form of contract documents, engineer's estimate, and designating the lowest responsible bidder as Synergy Contracting, LLC. Jesse Rognes, president, $902,630 and no cents, Bill. Council communication number 19-058, and A, approving the contract and bond and permission to sublet. Let's go ahead and open. Is there anybody here to speak to this?
I know that there are going to be some, but if I could just make a couple of comments first, because I'm going to have them come up.
You can request them to speak. Okay, go ahead. Okay.
This is an exciting night, and we have neighborhood people here, we have the Parks Area Foundation folks here, and they have a check that they would like to present to the city. And Bill or Pam, if you want to come up and present this check, they have a nice check for this project.
Good job.
And
We love money.
it's just interesting to note that, this has been a private-public partnership, and these folks have worked for the last 9 years selling hamburgers and hot dogs, and on Friday nights, in the 100-degree heat, in the rain,
Love beer.
to raise money for this project. And they do have some pictures also. And Polk County, I think Angela Conley was going to be here, or Tom Hawkinsmith, I don't see them, but with the...
Right, because it's snowing outside.
Yeah, they have a check for $250,000.
What?
And
Wow. That's a lot of hot dogs.
can somebody send me that picture too?
Yep.
I'll send it to you.
But this group has raised over $600,000.
There, that's perfect. There you go. Now I don't have to. There. 1, 2, 3.
Perfect, thank you, thank you.
But
And thanks for the great work and commitment.
Good job. Very nice. You've only done this. Do you actually have the check there?
he does.
I'll tell you that. Here, I got that.
That's amazing.
Thank you, everyone who's participated in this.
Great work.
A great community effort.
I guess,
If I
just
could-
for the record, my name's Jeff Garten, and I've been on the board for about 12, 14 years. And all I want to say is the cooperation with the city Park and Rec and you guys helping us keep moving this along, I really appreciate it, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to add that it's been so important that we recognize Ben Page and his whole team of people, because they have worked with this group. They met like once a month for many, many months to talk about this plan. And the Parks Area Foundation, they've gone out, they've raised the money, they've worked with Ben. I've been down there on Earth Day, they're there cleaning up the park. They have just invested a lot in this. And it's because of their hard work that we're completing this first phase. So this is to begin, we're going to approve the bid tonight to begin the first phase. And then we've set the hearing date for the second phase, which will be for site improvements. So 3 phases, we hope to continue to raise money and to continue on with this, but we should have the park complete in the summer of 2020. Yes, Ben, so 2020. And I just want to emphasize that Variety Club is also investing more than $600,000 in this park to build their star playground. And they're close to reaching the goal, but they don't have all of the money collected yet. So if anybody wants to do a bake sale or would like to donate this for the Variety Club, this is a playground every child will benefit from. It doesn't matter of your capabilities. You can be in a wheelchair and you will enjoy the Star Park. So lots of good things happening, and I appreciate the council's support. I know I came to you all a few years ago and said, hey, this is important, let's get it out there. So thanks to everyone that has done that. And just one last note, it looks like 18% will be sublet, and Chris Coleman, you might be interested in this. Their sublet list is included because this is the very same company. And it looks like I see Baker Electric on there, and I see some local companies. There are a few, but it does look like less than 20% will be sublet, but it does look like their Union Lease Baker Electric is on there. So
And local.
that's pleasing.
Connie?
And local.
I just want to thank Linda for championing the River Rendezvous and Riverview Group.
Yeah.
And I also want to commend this neighborhood group. If you have a chance on Friday night, you can come in and volunteer too. The work these people have done to this whole neighborhood, to bring it up and to improve, and they have such a feeling and faith in where they live. I don't know of another neighborhood that we can say has worked as hard to really improve the outcome for their neighborhood. So I appreciate the work they've done. It's a true testament to your perseverance and willpower to get things done, and they've done it in such a cordial, gracious way and never giving up. And I can't thank them enough, because it'll be a great addition for the city.
It will, and it's interesting the way the excitement has expanded throughout the whole neighborhood. You know, this is one of the areas that we've chosen with CZB for our redevelopment, but at the Fuse Des Moines, which is the chamber dinner on Friday night, Chuck's Restaurant was given an award. Emily Jones, for her hard work, was given an award. And the Highland Park Oak Park Neighborhood Association was selected for awards. So there's a lot of good things happening in Ward 2.
And it all starts with the ward council members, so good job, Linda.
Thanks.
Nice job.
takes everyone. So with that, I'll move item 41. 41A. And 41A.
As everybody votes, I want to also at least throw in a couple of good words. I remember, as a kid being out there at Riverview Park and the great fun that it was and everything that has happened over time and the evolution. Riverview moved away and became Adventureland and moved out to another part of this area. But this neighborhood never gave up. They never gave up on Riverview, its memory or its purpose or the importance it has to that area. And I still remember, and it kind of brings a lump to my throat, is I remember in 2008, is the members of this neighborhood and actually people from all over Des Moines came down and we fought like crazy to raise that levee. And we raised it 2 feet, and nobody thought we could do it. And all the volunteers that showed up in Union Park to fill those sandbags and then get them out on top of that levee, and then the broken hearts that everybody had when that levee breached and the whole area filled with water. But to each and every one of you never gave up. And that's why areas succeed. We have citizens that care, they care today, they cared 20 years ago, 50 years ago, and we're going to show that caring for future generations with this kind of a great development up there. So thank you all for everything that you're doing, and thank you for hanging in there, and let's make this area continue to be one of the great attractions for Central Iowa, but more importantly, thank you to the neighborhood and all of you that have hung in there all these years. Thank you, thank you.
If people haven't been to the area, the 27th would be a good night to drive around and stop, because Linda and I are calling bingo at Captain Roy's.
7 yes.
All right, let's note that hearing's in at 5:48. That takes us back to item 33. Item 33 is under ordinances, first consideration. It's amending Chapter 60 of the Municipal Code regarding the Housing Code. Council Communication number 19-060. Anybody here want to speak to this item? Seeing none?
Seeing none, Mr. Mayor, I'll move item 33, and I will waive the second and third reading.
Good idea.
7 yes.
Thank you.
Item 34. This is from Rita Mason of 2744 Arnold Road to speak requesting implementation of a weather ordinance for pets left outside and to further define adequate shelter for dogs in the existing ordinance. Rita.
Can she speak first?
I'm sorry?
She's one of the speakers listed. Can she speak first?
Sure. Fine.
Thank you. I'm Jill Joss. I live at 1203 Emma Avenue, Des Moines. I'm on the board of the nonprofit Fence Project Des Moines. Since 2012, volunteers have been building fences and providing dog houses for dogs that live outside on chains or in restricted kennels. These dogs primarily live outside all day and all night. While doing outreach in the community, we see dogs restricted to short chains, many with rundown or plastic dog houses. We also see dogs in kennels without weather tarps. Often these dogs have knocked over their water or it's frozen. We work to educate owners on the proper care of dogs and assist where we can. In November of every year, we provide straw to all dogs that we have built fences for throughout the years and encourage owners to bring them inside. We also provide heated water bowls when electricity is available. Please consider a more specific ordinance relating to weather and adequate shelter for dogs. Thank you.
There's maybe somebody else, but at some moment, if there's more people that are going to speak, we'd ask you to do so. And then I think what we'd like to do is then refer it to the manager for appropriate look by either legal or other departments to see what we can do.
Good evening. My name is Deb Smudlock. I actually live in West Des Moines at 5465 Peachtree Drive.
We can help you find a place here in Des Moines. That's a good idea. Thanks.
I kind of married into West Des Moines, but yes, I appreciate that.
Get him to see the light move.
That's right. Lived years off of 44th Street, so. I have been involved with the fence project for about 5 years. Kind of came into it looking on their Facebook page and just happened to join one of their builds, like I said, about 5 years ago. If you know anything about the organization, we are very hands-on. We work with owners who have dogs on chains, who live outside most of the time, 24/7, every day of the year, most of the time in lower-income neighborhoods. And we work directly with owners to build a fence, provide adequate housing through free dog houses that we either build or have built using our own funds through our nonprofit organization, and also providing veterinary care, food, kind of whatever the animal needs. And part of what we do also, from my perspective, involves educating family members, educating the public, the neighbors who see us out digging or, putting these fences up, educating them, building their trust that we really are looking for the welfare of these animals that don't have a voice of their own. Through my work with the Fence Project, and now I'm on the board of the Fence Project, I see now more firsthand what happens. I don't want to say on a daily basis, but on a regular basis. Community members are reaching out to us through our Facebook page, through email, or direct communication, asking us to help dogs in their neighborhood who they see on a leash, and those dogs are left outside in all types of weather in some cases. Dogs that are left in kennels 24/7, even in the weather that we had a couple of weeks ago, or a week, I guess, where it was 40 below zero, the rest can barely stand to be outside, for 5 minutes without fear of frost. Animals have no choice but are being left outside while their owners are inside their house. And so, it's really become a passion to try to help these creatures have a voice, and also to educate owners about what they need to do if they are going to have a pet. And I do want to say that I have not, I don't have a history with any of the enforcement organizations in Des Moines or in Polk County. I've just recently, like I said, become educated on this issue. I worked with Polk County a few weeks ago on a couple of dogs. In fact, I would like to show you a picture of these dogs that live outside. I'm not sure how to just, thank you, that live outside their lives. And if you see the red, it looks like red, but it's a wooden doghouse. We actually provided that doghouse because there's two of them. You can just see one here. But they're two short-haired dogs that literally live outside, either most of the time in mud and on snow and ice. And in this particular case, we just had to do something. It was last winter, and we just felt like we had to do something or they weren't going to survive the winter. And so we went ahead, even though it's sort of outside of our mission, we went ahead and went to the home, again, with the owner's permission, with the owner's acquiescence, and put together dog houses for these dogs so that they could at least survive through the winter. Another thing that I've learned through, again, this work, the Fence Project, is that the current Des Moines ordinance, if you will, dealing with what's considered animal neglect is pretty vague and leaves a lot of room for interpretation. Essentially, it provides that a dog or an animal outside needs to have water, food, and the term adequate shelter. And because that language is vague, my experience has been that it leaves law enforcement and others who are charged with protecting these animals, sometimes with, maybe not as much leeway. If there's a call made about a particular animal that's being left outside and in distress. You all are familiar with the municipal code that deals with this topic. Like I said, it's relatively vague, and by way of comparison, we did a little bit of research, and the city of Indianapolis has an ordinance that has a lot more specificity. So I'll pass these around. But law enforcement and others charged with ensuring that these animals are safe and somewhat comfortable, if you will.
Can you kind of wrap up? You have 5 minutes and you 1:06 now, so.
Oh, I'm
if you could
sorry.
kind of-
I'm sorry. So you.
And we'll give you quick here. Chris, you want to
Yes.
give us some receipt
I'll move to
file?
receive and file.
Thank you. So the Indianapolis ordinance is very specific about what type of shelter, what type of, how much space animals have, tethering animals, bringing animals inside if temperatures fall below or above certain degrees. So
Okay, we'll receive and file this, and then we'll refer it to the city manager and to legal to kind of go over it and see what's possible here in.
all right.
in
Thank
Des
you.
Moines.
Appreciate your
Thank you.
consideration.
I'll move to receive and file and refer to the managers. I think there's, I'm sorry.
You have one more person to speak? Do we have more than one more person to speak? All right.
I'm Rita Mason, 2744 Arnold Road, Des Moines, Iowa. As you know, we're asking to implement an ordinance for better protection of our pets in hot and cold weather with some tether restrictions. Just Sunday, Newsweek came out with an article that showed about dogs being left outside, and it included Iowa in that. A week and a half ago on the news on January 30th, it was stated that Animal Control, or the city, got over 20 calls, and this was when temperatures were averaging minus 21 below zero. And then in the same breath, it was said, but those dogs are fine. If they weren't taken inside, they're not fine. Their dogs can get hypothermia just being outside in frigid temperatures, or if their fur is moist. Those dogs, no matter what happened to them, even if they died, we probably wouldn't know what happened, but those dogs are suffering. It's cruel. We're number 48 ranked nationally. The states, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Missouri, and Minneapolis, they're rated in the 20s and 30s. Illinois, for the 11th year, is rated number 1 in animal protections. They studied 3,400 statutes, and they compiled them in 19 categories, and of that, we got the ranking of number 48 as of 2018.
You're talking about the state of Iowa?
The state of Iowa, yes. And, there's over 30 states that have weather protections for hot and cold, over 30 states. And there's hundreds of municipalities that have that. Now, how did Illinois get to be number 1? They're a big agricultural state. But they have had little cities and towns all pass these little local ordinances and stuff where basically it became acceptable. And so that's how they they went locally and they became the best. They have the, really stringent laws, fines, even jail time. So I think it's time for us to kind of step it up a little bit. The public needs to know what their expectations are. You're going to have these people that no matter how you help them, how you beg, how you try to want to please them to take care of their dog, and they're not going to do anything unless there is an ordinance in place that law enforcement can actually enforce. Something that gives law enforcement immunity if they went ahead and broke the car window, or if a good Samaritan called 911 and waited until they came. And then there has to be a really clearly defined law that the first responders do not have to suffer any kind of consequences for doing the right thing. And the reason why I'm asking for also a tethering to be put in to consideration with this ordinance is because increasingly, all over the states, they are also combining tethering with the weather ordinances, because the tethering, those dogs that are tied out, some of them we've seen as short as 3 feet leashes on them. And so when they see us, they stand up and they're literally choking themselves where they're tied onto the fence on there. The dogs in this extreme cold weather, they need to be able to have access to their shelter, to their water, to their food, and they need to be able to get in there and comfortably nest. In Minnesota, how they define a adequate shelter is it's got to be off the ground, it's got to be moisture-proof, it has to be wind-proof, and the dog must be able to maintain his temperature. Now, nobody's going to go around with a temperature, taking dogs' temperature when they see a dog outside, but there has to be some reasonable, there's 3 stages of hypothermia, there has to be some reasonable education, and people just need to go ahead and do it. Here, this is what a dog that we work with looks like. He's left outside all the time, and you see how emaciated he is? Well, we're repeatedly told he's fine. Okay, this dog, when they're out in a weather like that, they need twice the amount of food and water. If not, they get dehydrated, they can't regulate their body temperature. And I'm asking Des Moines to please consider a weather ordinance for our city. Okay.
Thank you to all of you. Council, any thoughts, questions, receive and file? What do you think?
I mean, I'd be curious what best practices are and how that compares to our ordinance. So, I mean, we've got some good information here. I'd like to just learn a little bit more, and if there are things we can do to improve our ordinance, I mean, I'd like that to be brought back to us.
A new ordinance or just a report?
Well, if there's a recommendation from staff after looking and consulting with other stakeholders, what best practices are.
Okay.
I think it's reasonable to have that brought back to us.
If I could just add, I agree. I met with Tom down at the ARL a few weeks ago to talk about an ordinance, and I know a few years ago there was another ordinance that was brought before council and that was not passed. But I really would like to see us take a look at having some stronger penalties in place for some of these animals that have been deemed vicious. Maybe we need to take a look at our ordinance now, take a look at the proposed ordinance that was a few years ago. But for instance, like a pit bull right now, because it looks like a pit bull, it's deemed, if it looks like a pit bull, then it has to be in a fence that's like 6 foot tall. It has to be in an enclosure, and that's simply not happening. In Ward 2, we've had 3 attacks on people this last summer, and it's an officer, and it's my understanding that we don't have the tools in place to keep track of where these people are moving. I know in one instance, and I didn't bring my notes with me, but the person had moved, and so we didn't really know, that where the dog was. And I just think it's time that we take a look at that and really work to protect our animals, but to also protect our residents. We have an 82-year-old woman that was sitting on her porch and was attacked by a dog, and her dog was killed. So I just would like to see I'd like to refer it back to the city manager, and let's just talk about what we can do.
I'd like to say something. The reason that we're here is not about the pit bulls.
I understand that.
We're here because we want to change the weight and the length.
I understand.
Of the tether.
Yes.
And we're concerned about the weather. This has absolutely nothing to do with the boat
I know that.
situation. It's completely separate.
Right, and we've referred that on to legal and to the manager's office.
We're not talking about that.
I understand that. Thank you. All right, we have a motion?
Yeah, I'll move as I previously stated.
Okay.
7 yes.
Item 35, this is from Brad Padre, 400 Walnut Street, to speak regarding billing after a property is condemned.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council members. I do have handouts, so.
All right.
Chris.
Been busy tonight.
You have been busy.
That's why you like to sit over there.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So,
all right.
Yeah, the reason I'm coming down tonight is because in June of last year, I purchased a property near the Drake neighborhood with the attempt to, become a landlord, take over the tenants there. One day later, it was set on fire. So the house burned up. It was immediately condemned. It was burned up by a previous resident who was a homeless woman and a convicted arsonist, although because she didn't admit to do it, she was not jailed. I spoke to Eric Barker, who is a city inspector, who guided me through the process of having a condemned, burned-up property. So he made sure that I cleaned up the property, he made sure that I boarded the windows, and I did everything basically according to the book. 6 months later, I managed to sell the property to the same person who actually bought it from me at a substantial loss. The reason I'm here tonight is because I received a bill shortly after selling the property from the City of Des Moines Community Development Center. This bill's for $820. Now, I was never given any information regarding monthly legal inspections or photography. Eric Barker told me if I didn't comply with everything he told me, I would be fined, which is totally understandable. If you're a developer and you let a property sit derelict, the city should, push you to do so. However, the reason why I'm here tonight is because I think that the City of Des Moines Community Development Center should change its policy to monthly billing. This is a big shock to me. Losing my shirt on this property was very terrible, and then to get an invoice after it's been sold is adding insult to injury. Had he billed me monthly, or had I been given a list of, this is what's going to happen, especially considering I complied with really everything that had been done, I did feel like this is a little bit unjust to hear from it kind of at the end of the fact. I worked my way up the Community Development Center, speaking to a number of different people, until I spoke to Sue Ann Donovan, who said that although she sympathized with my problem, the only folks who could help me with this bill or even with this policy would be City Council and the Mayor. So I said, okay, I'll just go tell them my complaint. I'm not expecting this invoice to get scrubbed. I'm not expecting to get it lowered or anything, but I think that as I've learned through this house fire, that the blight problem in the city, I think it's pretty bad in certain areas, but I think sometimes it can be exacerbated by the homeowner not knowing what they're in for. Nobody wants to have a property just vacant and be destroyed and be condemned, but there's a lot of confusion around. So again, I'm not here to push any sort of particular policy. I mean, obviously, at the end of this quick statement, I'm going to ask if there's any way that I could get this fine lessened or eliminated. I do understand the city did work. However, I understand that may not happen, and that in the future, if someone loses their shirt on a property, perhaps if I had been monthly, I would have known it was coming and been able to budget for it. But since it came after I sold the house, it could have happened for years. I could have held this house on 4 or 5 years, and then I finally get rid of it, and then the city hits me with a $3,000 or $4,000 bill. I think that's kind of my issue, is never heard about this. Oh, yes.
Can I jump in?
Of course.
Scott, maybe address to you. I'm disappointed that we're not even collecting more often. I got to believe that we are losing our ability to collect what's owed to us by waiting so long in some situations when people get so upside down. And so you'd think that we'd know a lot about all the insides of the government. I didn't know this, and hopefully it is an oversight or some unique issue, but can you check into it?
Oh, absolutely.
And Mayor, if it's all right with you, I would, I'd like to refer it to the manager and ask for a report back, but for whatever authority we have is to grant the manager or his designee the ability to negotiate at least the last several months of this bill.
Can I just ask a question? Did you not get these fines?
Never.
You didn't receive any letters,
No.
like on the 20th, the legal inspection?
Correct. This was, the first letter I got was invoice date, January 15, 2019, after I'd sold the house. Had I, and
Interesting.
I've, like I said, I'm not a tough guy to find.
No, I understand.
You know, I'm
You've been
It
not
looks
that
like
scary.
title.
I'm easy to contact, you know, like really, I'm not the kind of guy who's hiding, you know?
No, I understand. I just didn't
But
know
yes.
this was our policy to
Can
bill every 6 months.
can I make that motion?
It might, the policy might be to bill every 6 months, but I didn't know that. And also, you know, I guess, from my perspective, I only got the bill after I sold the place. So maybe, you know, the department was running its numbers and they're thinking, oh, you know, Mr. Padre hasn't been paying these bills. I would have loved to know. If I had gotten a bill in September, October, you know, even November, I would have said, hey, you know, this is how they do things. If the policy is to bill every 6 months, I think that's a little bit of a hit to.
No, I understand. It really surprises me if we're doing a legal inspection that we're not sending something out immediately following that says that we're doing a legal inspection.
Legal is not legal, just so you know, that's not.
I'm not looking at you, Jeff, saying that. I'm just saying that we have an inspection. It says, it's listed as a legal inspection here, so I apologize. I didn't say the legal department wasn't doing it. But it surprises me that we wouldn't go out and inspect it and then turn around and send a bill. I don't know how it works, so I guess we'll come to the bottom of it. He has a motion.
So what you're looking for is to not only review this, but to come back and talk to us about policy and how we're going to do these things moving forward?
I don't know that it's a council policy, but I'd.
Well, no, but there is a policy here in terms, I would guess, on billing.
Well,
So,
and if it's our policy, that's great. If the manager can fix it and report back to us, I want a report at least.
Oh,
I don't know
absolutely.
that it necessarily needs to be our policy. But I do,
I'm
I
asking
would,
him to make the policy, you know,
I wa-
and along with legal, I want it to be legal.
and I would like I'd like the action to include, if he doesn't have the authority to negotiate or forgive part of this, to do that based on the facts that you learn as you go through this. I mean, I'm not doubting anything that you say, but.
Of
if-
course, you know, maybe I got a bunch of letters and I threw them out. you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's certainly
I just think it's
possible.
worth checking, and so I'd grant you that authority, but not insist on it here. And, I just think when you start to get several months behind and it's a recurring fee, it's just not the kind of interaction we want with our citizens who want to feel good about living here.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes,
You had a fire in June,
that's correct.
and did you go down to the city and pull permits to make repairs, or did you not do any repairs?
I couldn't afford to make any repairs at the time. I boarded the house, I cleaned it up, and I had and Mr. Barker helped me along the process. I put it up for sale. I'm so sorry. I didn't pull any permits because for the first 2 months, there was an arson investigation. I wasn't allowed to do anything to the property because they were investigating. So that killed time, and during that time, there was a legal inspection and a photography session. Photographs taken and legal inspection were done. So I couldn't touch the place until even August.
Right.
I couldn't even clean up.
I think there is a procedure in place that, well, Sue Ann will clear it up.
Yeah. Of course.
Yep, Yeah.
absolutely.
So, I mean, I guess my final question is, I mean, as far as this bill goes, should I speak to Sue Ann and tell her, hey, I spoke to city council?
I've got it.
He's going to take.
Okay,
got your
because
contact
it's due in 2 days, so.
Sue Ann.
Anne's back there listening.
Oh,
Oh, I didn't see Sue Ann.
nice to meet you.
We will get right.
Can my motion also include that there'll be no penalty if he doesn't pay in 2 days, if that's the due date? That's fine. I mean, it may take you longer to figure it out.
All right. Perfect. Thank you.
All right.
He lives in Kirkland.
All right, we have a motion, and if everybody would vote, including Mr. Coleman, that would be good.
Oh, he's the Airbnb guy, too.
Oh, yes.
7 yes.
Yeah, well, that's what he was here about.
All right, I want to thank everybody for coming down this evening, and unless anybody else has anything else, Mr. Manager, anything to? No. Okay, let's say this meeting is adjourned.
Let's do it.
Thank you all.